On Tuesday, January 29th, I wanted to get out for a hike, even though we had been out the day before. I knew that snow was on the way, followed by a bitter Arctic blast of cold air. I got a text from Lisa asking if I would like to go for a snowshoe hike on Round Top. I agreed to meet her at 12:30 p.m. at the Presbyterian Church. By noon it had already snowed a few inches, and more snow was on the way. The temperature was actually a little warmer than the day before, hovering around 26 degrees. I suggested to Sheila that we go out for a hike, and she instantly became crazed and would not leave my sight while whining all the time. Cindy was still fighting off a cold and preferred to stay inside. I put on a long-sleeve base layer and wore my mammoth pullover, which is heavier than most others I own. I put on a pair of tights underneath my Columbia Omni-Heat hiking pants. These have a reflective lining and are heavier than my go-to rail rider's pants. The pants have Velcro closures at the ankles, which means gaiters are not usually needed until the snow gets deeper. I donned my mammoth hoodie, which has enough zippers to dump heat if needed. I put on a heavier hat and gloves. I wore my Salomon B52 winter boots, which are all leather and seem to be waterproof with sufficient insulation. I decided to put on a pair of crocodile gaiters. I grabbed a pair of leaky poles with external locks that I have been using lately. I decided to wear my Tubbs Alp Flex VTR snowshoes with the boa binding. This binding uses a thin steel cable system and a ratchet which tightens it to give a custom fit and a secure binding. These snowshoes also have a televator to elevate the hiker's heel on ascents. This is a feature that you didn't know you needed until you try it, and then it is hard to live without it. I decided to leave my pack home as I had many pictures from Round Top in the snow. At 12:25 p.m. we walked out the door, where I put on my snowshoes. I grabbed Sheila's leash from the car and we walked up the driveway. She pulled me up the driveway knowing exactly where we were going. There was a good covering of several inches of snow, and the snowshoes helped a lot except when we crossed the road. We crossed the street with Sheila on her leash and walked to the side parking area at the church where Lisa was parked. When Sheila saw Lisa, she started to pull me toward her. She gave Lisa a joyful greeting as she got ready to hike. Lisa had decided to wear only spikes instead of snowshoes. We walked to the back of the church and began the ascent of the steepest hill behind the church. The hill is short, but gets the circulation pumping and is the steepest and longest climb on the trail. Sheila helped me along by pulling me up the hill. She actually pulls harder when there is snow, which has to be her husky blood. When we got to the top of the hill, I paused for a moment to take in the view before turning left at the trailhead. I let Sheila off her leash and she began to explore the trail with her nose. As we followed the trail, I noticed that there was more snow than the day before, although not enough to require snowshoes. At the first trail junction, we followed Sheila as she continued straight ahead up the hill toward the lookout. We followed the yellow blazes up to the spur trail to the viewpoint and walked to the top of the hill. Town was covered in a blanket of snow and more was lightly falling. We followed the trail uphill a little toward the next trail junction. At the junction, we turned right to follow the yellow trail along the base of Round Top. The snow was fresh and no one else had been on the trail since the snow. At the next trail junction, we turned left on the blue trail and walked up toward the summit of Round Top. The snowshoes gripped well, and Lisa was also having a good time with her spikes. Soon we were walking across the summit plateau. We started down the steeper side, and I was able to get a glide on the snowshoes down the hill. Once we got to the yellow trail, we turned left and walked to the trail junction again. This time we turned right and followed the trail down to the woods road. We walked downhill on the woods road to the first trail junction, finding one tree across the trail. I was still feeling fresh, so I asked Lisa if she would like to do another figure eight in the opposite direction. We turned around and started back up the more gentle slope we had just ascended. We followed the yellow blazes up the woods road to the next trail junction, where we turned left to walk along the base of Round Top. At the next junction with the blue trail, we turned right and walked up the steepest hill on the trail. We both had good traction and easily made the summit of Round Top without a problem. Sheila was running around off the trail investigating various animal tracks, seemingly unfazed by the cold weather. We walked down the hill to the yellow trail and turned right to again walk along the base of Round Top. At the next trail junction we turned left to walk down to the lookout. At the lookout we turned left and followed the yellow blazes on the trail back to the first rail junction. We continued straight ahead on the yellow trail to the trailhead. We walked down the cemetery hill under partly sunny skies. At the base of the hill, I put Sheila on her leash and we walked back to Lisa's car. Sheila and I then walked across the field to our driveway. It was 1:50 p.m. and we had hiked 1.8 miles in an hour and 20 minutes.